Hello everyone, my name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another comic book review. I promised that I'd cover this movie when it finally reached Disney+, so let's talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, it's admittedly been a while since I watched this movie, but I do remember enjoying it a good bit, and for a time I even considered it better than Homecoming. Even before rewatching this movie, I ended up not agreeing with that, but, I was at least hopeful that, like with Homecoming, it could turn out better. I didn't expect the movie to be this frustrating upon rewatch. Now, before I rip into this movie for all the stupid choices it makes, let me at least get one very positive thing out of this way and also a second, smaller positive thing. This movie has an excellent villain. Mysterio is, while I would say he's one of the weaker MCU Spider-Man villains, that's only really because he's in competition with, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, what is that? Green Goblin, Electro, and Vulture. But when compared to, but even when compared to them, he's still excellent. First of all, Jake Gyllenhaal gives an excellent performance where he's able to, play this, charismatic superhero wannabe while also, you know, really giving off an unstable feeling when he does go full villain. Like when he shouts fire all the drones now, you really do feel just how unstable he really is. And honestly, I can kind of understand you know, Tony blowing him off because yeah, he really is as unstable as he. At the same time, the character himself really does come off as somewhat of a mastermind where he thinks up of all these, crazy ideas that are so crazy and so unbelievable that they actually become believable and you realize that they might actually work. Yeah, plus he's yeah, I guess the whole point of his character is to show that nowadays people will believe anything, a sentiment that becomes more and more true as time passes. Yeah, the illusion scenes are also a lot of fun to watch, especially when you realize that this is all from drones. Like it's all just projector drones, but they're so well managed that it's amazing how it's able to make all the damage seem so real. Like it really does show how much of a genius both Mysterio and the people on his team are. And what's even interesting is that they're able to sprinkle in, hints about his true nature throughout the movie. I did have a second example that I can't remember off the top of my head because I didn't put it in my notes, but the one I did put in my notes was the hint to that where earlier in the movie when Peter's raving about how the multiverse exists, and Nick tells him to, Fury tells him to take a step back. You Quentin literally tells him, "Don't apologize for being the smartest person in the room." And then in the finale, he says, "You can be the smartest person in the room, and no one will notice." So that interesting little hint to sort of his true motivation is a really nice touch. And while I was talking, I literally remember the other example. During the fight with Molten Man, Peter accidentally, web slings onto one of the drones, and that camera ends up being missing. So even then, that's a less subtle hint that something's up, but it's really interesting how they almost called back to that moment early on in the movie. And the last thing that I want to say about Mysterio is that, or at least that's positive, is that it really feels like he's breathing life into a very overused Infinity Saga trope where the motivation for the villain is scorn for Tony Stark. Tony wronged them in the past, whether it be directly or indirectly, so the villain wants to get back at him in some way. Apparently, the Vulture is considered one of these villains. I don't see it. Well, I mean, I guess I can kind of see it, but it's not really a direct attack on Tony in a sense. But villains like Obadiah Stane, Justin Hammer, Whiplash, Ultron, Zemo to an extent. The difference here is that now that Tony Stark is dead, it feels like Beck is taking advantage of that. And he's trying to replace Tony and become the new Iron Man, which has its own problems, but for now, it's at least something that keeps keeps the trope fresh. Admittedly, this is probably the only time they could do something like that, which, good thing that they haven't done that since, unless you want to count the Marvels, though that is out of scorn for a different superhero, so I'm not really fully comfortable counting that. The other positive thing I want to mention that doesn't have to do with Mysterio is that it is at least nice that they try to attempt a message about, not having to live under someone's shadow. Homecoming did this as well, where it talks about how being a hero is more than just wearing a suit. Here, it's more so about being your own person and not trying so hard to live up to the standards of your predecessor. Because everyone's expecting Peter to be the new Iron Man. All he really needs to do is just be himself, be Spider-Man, and that's what he does by the finale. So it is at least a nice message that's unfortunately undercut by the movie's biggest issue. Now, this movie is very interesting, where it has a very similar, despite coming out first. As much as I love, the villain and the message, the movie just completely falls apart on a story level because it feels forced to work. Now, a lot of this movie's issues come from the fact that Tony Stark gave this, 16-year-old kid this highly dangerous piece of technology. First of all, that makes no sense. Why wouldn't you give it to your wife? Or your, what is Happy, like his butler? Or even, the soldier who's been fighting alongside you in his own Iron Man armor. Seriously, why wouldn't you give that to, Pepper or Happy or Rhodey? Hell, I'd probably give it to Nick Fury before I gave it to Peter Parker. I've got nothing against Peter Parker, but he's a kid. He makes stupid decisions. He's irresponsible at times. So, of course, stupid stuff happens with the glasses, where he calls a drone strike on his bus. Yes, I know, even gave the glasses to the villain. Literally, the only reason why Mysterio's able to attack London is because, despite only having one slip-up that's able to be corrected without too many people noticing, he decides, you know what, I'm not worthy of these glasses. I'm going to give them to the one guy that I've only known for a couple days who turns out to be the villain. That is such a stupid choice, and there had to have been a better way to reveal Mysterio as the villain. It's weird too, because even though No Way Home took risks with the story, at least the payoff was worth it. Here, it feels so forced. And it even forces out, I guess, it also unveils some other problems with the story where, things happen because, or characters are in certain locations because plot. The plot demands for a certain thing to happen. So they have a character go somewhere where it allows for these things to happen. So there's a scene where, Peter meets up with an meets up with an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. at a rest stop, and she tells him to take off his clothes to try out a new suit. Okay, so first of all, why does he need to take off his clothes at all? And second of all, a grown woman tells an underage boy to take off his clothes in front of her. She tells him to strip down naked while she watches. That's not creepy at all. But why does this scene happen? Well, because they need because there's somewhat of a love triangle going on between Peter, MJ, and another guy named Brad, who apparently got really mature during the blip. So there's a love triangle there, and this needs to happen because he's going to walk in on them doing this, take a picture of what's going on, and then basically, I don't know if this is considered blackmailing or not, but basically screw Peter over by showing the picture to MJ. So in other words, we have a scene where a grown woman, an underage boy, to strip down naked in front of her because we need fuel for a love triangle. Another stupid thing that happens, Ned and Betty go on a Ferris wheel during the Molten Man attack. Why? Because we need them to be in danger. Yeah, we need some civilian for Peter and Mysterio to keep safe. Like, they could have just stayed at the opera. They could have. MJ probably could have done the same, but no, we need them to be in this dangerous situation because stakes. We need there to be some kind of tension, even though I'm pretty sure, Molten Man taking out all the Earth's energy when he gets too powerful is already stakes enough. This movie makes so many stupid choices. Like, this isn't a bad movie, but the choices it makes are so dumb because of these forced plot points and the damn glasses. And it doesn't even stop there because it even finds a way to cheapen Mysterio a little bit. Because I have a question. What's his end goal? Like, seriously, he wants to become the new Iron Man to scorn Tony Stark, but did he not think about what would happen when a threat shows up? When Kang arrives, when Ultron comes back, when the Council of Kangs attacks the multiverse, when Galactus eventually shows up, or some other world-ending threat like World Breaker Hulk. Like, or Doctor Doom. I literally just remembered Doctor Doom. Like, come on, man. You had to have at least some kind of forethought or forward thinking. At least try to think out your plan a little bit more. Like, I don't know, maybe make it to where he somehow managed to reach a version of himself that fit his backstory perfectly. Like, I'm just saying, this was the last movie before the multiverse saga. It does tap into the multiverse just a little bit. I mean, yeah, it's a ruse. It didn't actually happen, but you could make it to where it did happen on coincidence. That would at least be more believable than Mysterio not thinking that, oh, wait, people are going to call my bluff eventually. So in general, this is just a frustrating movie. Like, on the one hand, Mysterio is a great villain, and the message is pretty good. On the other hand, the plot has so many forced holes. Like, not only are there parts that make no sense, but there are other parts where things happen because we need some way to move the story along, so we have to force it. And that's the worst kind of stories. It happened with Blue Beetle, where we needed to get the Scarab into Jaime's back, so let's have his family pressure him into opening the burger box. Here, we need to reveal Mysterio as the villain somehow, so despite Peter screwing up with the Edith glasses only once, let's have him give them to the villain. Yeah, honestly, I didn't expect this movie to frustrate me this much, but but it did, and I'm gonna have to give it a 2.2 out of 5 because of that. I will say this is a slightly better movie than Blue Beetle, but it has the exact same problem. Yeah, it is unfortunate. It is something that I would be okay with recommending you watch at least once, but once you see it one time, you don't really need to see it again. Anyways, guys, that's going to be my review for Spider-Man Far From Home. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all the generic stuff. I almost screwed that up. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and Godspeed.